Welcome back to the hills, everyone. We're about 3 weeks out from turkey season now here in Western North Carolina, which means we are getting down to our final gear preparations for the year. This year I'm actually running a new shotgun, and in today's video I want to give you my honest feedback on it. So before we get into this year's gun, let's talk about the gun that I was running last year. And I have it right here in front of me, and it's not going to go anywhere. It is the Rossi Tuffy Turkey Edition, chambered in 410. Now let's talk pros and cons on this shotgun. The biggest pro, and probably the number one reason I will not get rid of this gun, is how light it is. I bought this gun specifically for my young children who are just now beginning to turkey hunt and starting to find a passion for it. And I wanted a gun that they could carry, that they could handle, that they could hold, and this fits the bill. I don't remember the exact weight, but I am fairly confident it is sub 5 pounds empty. So no red dot, no shells in the holder. I believe it's sub 5 pounds, so less than 5 pounds. I can quite literally grab it with 2 fingers and hold it with ease for an extended amount of time. So as far as being a weight-friendly for kids firearm, this is going to be the ticket. Another great aspect that I bought this gun for as far as children are concerned is the fact that this entire section of the buttstock right here can be removed and the length of pull be shortened down that much for a child. Now, my children never needed me to do that. This was actually the perfect gun for them straight out of the box, and it has done its job. It killed my son's first turkey, and I took 4 turkeys with it myself last year. This shotgun is a simple break action, single shot, 410. It is designed to handle TSS loads. That is the whole purpose behind the turkey edition of this shotgun. So you don't have to worry about messing your barrel up, sending down that really hard TSS. For a 410, it patterns great. I killed a turkey right at 50 yards last year. Now, I am not a guy who is all for these long shots. I'm a guy who likes turkeys 40 and in, but the circumstances that I was hunting this bird in last year, I knew I was going to have to take a long shot. 50 yards is probably the longest shot I've ever took, and I took it with the smallest gauge of shotgun that I've ever took a turkey with. So that's kind of a testament to not only what TSS can do, but what this shotgun can do. Again, I am not recommending that you buy a 410 and search out 50-yard shots. Now, with all those things said, this shotgun is a great gun. However, there is one major flaw that we found with this gun last year, and if you go back to last year's videos when I reviewed this shotgun, I hadn't quite solved it then, but now a year later I'm bringing it to you and I have discovered what it is. So in last year's video, while we were testing this shotgun, we had failure to extract on and I'm not going to say the brand just because I don't want anyone to think that it was the shell's fault, but we had a failure to extract on a certain TSS brand shell. After shooting and shooting and shooting, I decided to keep a punch rod with me, and we kind of mitigated the problem, and I was able to use those shells as the season went on. However, I ended up discovering what the actual problem was through a couple of forums on the internet and a little bit of trial and error. And the simple solution was I needed high brass shells. And the reason you need these high brass shells for this Rossi is because with a shorter brass, that husk of the shell will actually expand and get itself stuck inside the chamber. Now, you might complain, well, that's a manufacturing flaw, but when you're talking about a shotgun that's around $230 brand spanking new, you can't expect it to be the Cadillac of shotguns. There's going to be some weaknesses that the gun is going to show, and you're going to exploit them, and there are some workarounds that you're going to have to go through. If that's the only workaround that I have to use, then I'm perfectly fine with that. Which is why this shotgun is not going anywhere. This will still be the shotgun that my kids use this season. And depending on if I have to go on a really, really long hike somewhere, it might still be the shotgun that I end up using. But with that being said, this year I decided that I wanted to go back to a semi-auto gun. I still wanted to keep it relatively light, and I wanted to keep it a sub-gauge, and I got to looking on the internet and exploring and grabbing a few guns here and there as I went into sporting goods stores, and I ended up deciding to go with the gun that I chose for this year, which I have sitting right here, and I'll show you here in just a second. Now, I am not coming to you saying that any gun is right or wrong. I am coming to you and saying that you need to find the shotgun that works for your circumstances. So for me, I self-film. At any given time, I have 3 cameras on me, plus my calls, plus the simple fact that the hills of Appalachia are treacherous. You're going to have to hike, and typically you are going to have to hike a lot. So I need a gun that is light and not going to wear me out as I'm trying to move on a turkey, which is usually going to mean that you need a sub-gauge. So sub-gauge meaning less than your typical 12 gauge, 20s, 28s, 410s, things of that nature. I have also discovered over however many years I've been turkey hunting now that I prefer a pistol grip on my shotgun when I am filming. It makes me, as the hunter and the filmer, feel more confident in my actual grip on the gun. I don't have to wiggle my hand around to get to the camera. I'm just there. I can go straight from my pistol grip to my camera, or in the cases that I need to one hand with my left hand and manipulate the camera, I have more control over the actual firearm. Another thing that I was looking for in my turkey shotgun for this season is I wanted it to be specifically set up for turkeys. I prefer to use a red dot when I turkey hunt, so I wanted it to have either a Picatinny rail or a mounting system for a red dot. I wanted it to have a shorter barrel to it. I don't need a 28-inch barrel to be able to go hunting turkeys. I wanted it short and compact and everything that a turkey hunter dreams of when he thinks of his perfect shotgun. So, without further ado, this season we went with the Mossberg SA-20 Turkey Tactical, and all the tactical means is it has that pistol grip on it. It is a semi-auto shotgun. If you couldn't tell, that spring is extremely heavy, and I'll get to that here in just a moment. It's short. It's not as light as the Rossi, but I can still hold it with 2 fingers, no problem. And let's be honest, all of us turkey hunters have an appreciation for mossy oak bottomland, so I went with the green leaf. Why not? Now, full disclosure, I have shot this shotgun. If you watched my squirrel hunting video from this past fall, I actually used this to squirrel hunt. I have not, however, shot a turkey load out of it, and today that's what we're going to get into. So, for this season, I've got 3 shells that I'm going to go with. I will say that with everything that's going on in the world, I am getting kind of worried about TSS. Mostly the prices. Everybody else is kind of worried because companies are stopping to manufacture, but I use big box name companies anyways, just because it's easier for me to get my hands on. Not saying anything bad about those small mom and pop shops, and if you support them, please continue to do so. It's good for all of us as turkey hunters as a whole. But the 3 shells that I'm going to go with this year are the Apex Turkey Ninja in 8.5 shot, the Federal TSS in a 7 and 9 shot stack, and the good old faithful Winchester Longbeard XR in 5 shot. So, from the experience that I have so far with the Mossberg SA-20, I can tell you with that really, really heavy spring that it has had a little bit of a problem cycling things like game loads. This will be, like I said, the first time that I've actually fired a turkey load through it, and I'm rather excited. Now, as I mentioned, I'm getting a little bit worried about TSS. I'm worried about the pricing. I come to you guys as just the average Joe Blow. I don't have an ammunition sponsor. If there's any ammunition companies out there that want to sponsor ammo, feel free to let us know. But regardless, I'm hoping that the Winchester Longbeard XR is going to be a viable option for a 40-yard shot, because I am thinking that the future of TSS might have us all shooting lead again here in the near future. However, with previous years' experiences, the Apex tends to always be my go-to, with the Federal in a close second. That is just my opinion. I'm not sitting here trying to have a pissing competition with any of you guys over who your favorite TSS companies are. They are all great. They all have their purpose, and you all have your own favorite brand. So this video, again, is not about who has the best shell. It is simply about how I am feeling about my new gun for this season. So, without further ado, if you've made it this far, I'm going to quit running my mouth, and we are going to head outside and finally shoot some turkey loads out of the new Mossberg SA-20 Turkey Tactical. Okay, we are set up outside. I have a very hasty target set up down there. I just basically stapled some letter paper onto a pallet, but we're going to see what this thing will do. I am roughly 37 yards to the end of my barrel from where I'm sitting here. So that's pretty realistic for what I expect out of the gun. I want to see what it'll do there, if I would be comfortable pushing further with each round or not. And we're going to take it as it is at face value, and we're not going to try to do anything different with it. I did fail to mention inside, I am running the Vortex Viper red dot. It's the it's either the 3 or the 6 MOA variant of it. I can't remember. I have both, and I don't remember which is on which gun. And then for a choke, I'm using the Carlson's Turkey Spur in a 5.65 constriction. I'm not going to change anything else up. I'm not going to change the choke. I'm not going to change the red dot, other than if it needs to be sighted in any. I am just going to see out of those 3 shells how they perform and what I can and cannot get away with doing, and more or less how I like the gun as it is. So without further ado, let's shoot this thing. Up first, we have the tried, the true, and the trusty Longbeard XR 5-shot. Alright, first impressions. I can't see the pattern from here. I'm not really sure if you're even going to be able to see it in the big camera. But first impressions, I absolutely love the recoil or lack thereof on this gun. I basically let my body go completely limp and let it ragdoll me, and I could shoot that all day long. Second, with the turkey load in there, it performs like it is supposed to. So if you buy this gun and you intend it to be your jack of all trades gun, your do everything gun, it's going to take a long time to break that spring in to be able for it to do what you want it to do. But with a turkey load, with that heavier load in there, it definitely does exactly what it needs to do. Now, I'm going to run down here and see what this pattern looks like. Alright, so there you go. Longbeard XR's dropped just a little bit at this, we'll call it 40, we'll round up to 40. I'm about 37, 38 yards. They dropped just a little bit, which actually works out pretty good for me because I'm notorious for putting the red dot right on top of the head. And at distance, that kind of gives me a little bit of wiggle room. The pattern wasn't the most uniform. There was definitely a lot of blank places in the pattern. It was kind of wonky. Some of it was down low and then some of it was up to the right. But at 40 yards, that would be sufficient to kill a turkey, and I would trust it to kill a turkey. Do I think that I would go much further than 40? Probably not. But again, I don't like to shoot birds at distance. I just want to know what the gun is capable of. So if TSS does become obsolete, or no one can get their hands on it anymore, or if it prices me out, I do have a viable option out of a sub-gauge gun, a 20 gauge shotgun, to be able to not only successfully kill turkeys, but ethically kill turkeys. And at the end of the day, that's the name of the game. But with ethics, we always want the best that we can afford. So the next step up, I'm going to go with the Federal TSS. All right. Now we are going with the Federal 7-9 blend TSS. Okay. So that one's recoil was definitely much sharper, which is to be expected out of a TSS load. So I have no complaints on it for what it is. It's obviously not kicking me as hard as a 12 gauge would, but you can definitely tell there is a much more powerful round with that Federal TSS shell. However, power does not necessarily mean performance. The pattern is going to be the telltale sign. So the Federal TSS clearly outperformed the Longbeard XR as far as pellets in a 10-inch circle. There was obviously more oomph, if you will. There was more hitting power, even though the feet per second out of both are both sitting at 1,000 feet per second. Just the actual density of that TSS gives it a little bit more hit power, a little bit more penetration power. So it does outperform. However, it is also a lot more expensive. I spent $72 for a box of 5 of the Federal TSS, whereas I spent $30 for a box of 10 of the Longbeard XR. So, are you getting what you pay for? That's up to you to decide as the hunter. How important is it to you to have that extra density and the extra pellets inside of that circle? If you're someone who hunts fields all the time and 40 yards is your closest shot, then absolutely that TSS is going to be critical to making sure that you are more ethical as a turkey hunter. But if you're someone like me who hunts in the hills of Appalachia, and most of the time my shots are in dense woods and 30 and in, then XR is plenty enough for me to be successful while turkey hunting. However, with TSS where it is right now in pricing, I can still afford it, and I want to give the most ethical, clean, and efficient kill that I can to the turkey, so I will be going, or at least starting my season off, with the TSS. Now we just have to determine which of the two. So up next is the Apex Turkey Ninja with 8.5 blend. I have high hopes for this. I have shot a lot of turkey Apex Ninja out of both the 410 and my 12 gauge. So let's see how it performs out of the 20. Again, this is the Apex Turkey Ninja 8.5 blend TSS, 37 yards. Alright, out of all 3 loads that I've shot today, that one definitely had the most thump, the most recoil. I definitely would not ever let a child shoot that load. That thing definitely had some pop to it. Now it is traveling velocity-wise, it's going about 175 feet per second faster than the other two. It is a straight 8.5 shot. I don't know if that has anything to do or not to do with the recoil, but regardless, I definitely felt more recoil on that shot. And typically, if you feel more recoil, that means there's more penetration downrange. That's not always the case, but a lot of times it is. Again, though, we're not going off of what has the most penetration. We're going off of what is going to be the best for my needs. So we're going to walk downrange and see how that one patterned. All right, there you have it. That last shot, it was a little bit to the right. And kind of, I mean, it was pretty well center as far as up and down. It was a little bit to the right. That might have been me. I might have yanked on it a little bit. Regardless, I do believe that was still a lethal shot. However, out of the two TSS, believe it or not, I actually preferred the less expensive Federal. That was just personal preference. Again, this video, I am not sitting here telling you what is the best shell / choke combo. I'm not even telling you that this is the best shotgun. I just wanted to bring to you guys what I think about this gun, seeing as how it's going to be my first turkey season with it. Personally, I think this gun is the absolute ticket for what I do. Again, I am a self-filmer, so I need something light. It covers that basis. I prefer a pistol grip because of my self-filming. It just gives me more control of the gun and the camera at the same time. I know that I am going to be lethal to 40 yards with both TSS and lead loads out of this thing, which is very beneficial with how this crazy market is going right now. I think that is something very important that every turkey hunter should be looking into right now, is have a backup plan. If you are a TSS shooter, have a backup plan for if and when TSS becomes inaccessible to you, whether it's because of financial problems or because we don't have any more TSS to sell to the general public. So, to wrap it all up, this year I will be running the Mossberg SA-20 Tactical Turkey, starting with the Federal TSS 7.9 blend, then moving, if I cannot find any more of those, to the Apex Turkey Ninja with the 8.5 straights, and if TSS becomes inaccessible, I know that the Winchester Longbeard XRs in the 5-shot will perform just fine up to 40 yards and keep me in the turkey woods for as long as I can stand it. I hope you guys got something good from this. It's always fun for me to bring the shotguns out here and kind of show off my toys, if you will. Disclaimer, if you're under the age of 18 or even over the age of 18, firearms are not toys and don't treat them as such. But regardless, I hope you took something good away from it. If you did, leave me a like and a comment down below. And until next time, see you on the hill.